Hi, I'm Susan Libes. I'm going to be talking to you today about a project that represents an alternative approach to performing TMDLs and features a longstanding collaboration between Coastal Carolina University and the local municipalities that are located in the northeastern corner of South Carolina called the Grand Strand. The case study that I'll be presenting today is located in the town of Briarcliff that lies between Atlantic Beach and the city of North Myrtle Beach. The pollutant of concern, fecal bacteria, has been a problem for the surf zone waters of the Grand Strand, certainly since the 1970s. Ambient monitoring began in earnest in 1997 with Coastal Carolina University obtaining the state's first certification for measuring Enterococcus, the saltwater indicator for recreational use. By 2008, the state Department of Health and Environmental Control began including some of the monitoring sites on its 303D list with a TMDL target date of 2011. We have long passed that with no TMDLs, and in fact, we're now at the 13-year limit for the first listing of these spots, impaired spot sites. One feature I do want to mention that the hottest of the hot sites tend to be located in the mouths of these small tidal creeks called swashes. Because of the impairments, although the state does not close the beaches, it does post permanent swimming advisories. Typical signage for this kind of posting is shown over here. So why don't we have any TMDLs yet? I think the first issue is a lack of clarity as to who is responsible for managing water quality in the surf zone, especially for sources that are non-point in origin. Some of that issue began to get settled with the start of the NPDES Phase 2 stormwater program for small separate storm systems that began in the state of South Carolina in 2007. We're now in our second permit cycle, and as planned, the intensity of responsibility has increased for the local municipalities, so they are now looking at having to address the 303D listings as well as any TMDLs that might already be approved. But the other part of the reason why there are no TMDLs in the surf zone is a definite lack of information on sources. What are the host animals, their geographic location, and where are the loads the largest? To try to address the need for more information, the local municipalities, in collaboration with the Army Corps of Engineers, funded Coastal Carolina University to begin developing a tool to do watershed-based assessments that would feature microbial source tracking using a multi-parameter index. That includes some genotypic markers. If you want to read more about this, I've provided a link here in my talk. At about the time we were developing this tool, EPA began recommending that states consider alternative approaches to TMDLs that featured adaptive management. And in South Carolina, the state did recognize this on time by the 2018 deadline. They first began noting in the 2016 303D list that alternative restoration approaches to TMDLs were possible. And so this brings us to the case study where I'm going to show how some of this adaptive management has been going on. The site that promoted this out in the surf zone is at the mouth of a swash, a tidal creek that discharges along the property boundary of the town of Briarcliff, which is about 500 acres in site and features close to 120 septic tanks, all those little yellow boxes there. And to the south, a spiritual center. The flow of water moves out of the spiritual center past Briarcliff and into the ocean, but has also merged up with flows that drain from north of Briarcliff from the city of North Myrtle Beach that is all on sewer. So microbial source tracking efforts began in the year 2000. Some early genotypic work was done here that revealed a human source. This was repeated in 2010 after Coastal Carolina University developed its watershed assessment tool, microbial source tracking tool, and we confirmed the same. There was a strong human source. So zooming in here on the swash where the two flows come together, I wanted to quickly recap what the data were telling us in terms of contraventions, frequency of contraventions of water quality criteria. The state uses the 104 mpn per 100 milliliter threshold, and you enter the 303D list if more than 10% of your monitoring results in a 5-year period exceed that threshold. So from the period of 2008 to 2010, just sort of applying that rule set, we can see why the site was 303D listed. This was a period of historic drought that ended in 2013, and we've had a period of historic flooding since then. You can see the impact and the likely nature of the non-point source cause of the contraventions by this increase. The county realized that it was important to do some microbial source tracking on the other side of the swash. So this is within the city of Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, and another municipality from Briarcliff. And the source tracking work that we did for the county in 2015 revealed that both swashes were contributing about equally to the impairment, at least from concentration standpoint, to the downstream impairment. It just so happened we were also doing a groundwater study at the same time that had to do with the former drought, and when it started raining again, the rise in the water table frequently was intercepting the leach field for the septic tanks that were in the frontline homes. So all this information enabled the town and the county to get the front row homeowners here to hook up to a sewer line. And this brings us to the present day. How are we doing? Has the sewer line hookup reduced the problem in the surf zone and on the at least the Briarcliff side of the system? To answer this question, a volunteer monitoring program was started in 2019. We've got 3 sites located in the swash, 2 sites on the uplands in the lakes, and I can tell you right now from our routine biweekly sampling that there's no bacteria source coming out of these lakes and draining into the swash. So I'm going to show you data for the tidal portion of this system in front of Briarcliff, site at the head of the swash, at the middle, and at the mouth of the swash. and also the companion data out in the surf zone. These data are all available at the web app for the volunteer monitoring program. I've got the link up here. The user is able to download a variety of graphs they can produce on the fly, like this box plot. So we've got 48 bi-weekly measurements made year-round at this point for enterococcus. And yep, we've still got some significant impairments in here, with the median values lying all 3 sites above the 104 water quality standard. The higher level at the head of the swash coincides with the lower salinity up there and suggests that the source, at least one source, is located upstream of the head of the swash site. So the salinities increase monotonically towards the ocean, and the enterococcus decreases monotonically towards the ocean, suggesting a headwater source. The frequency of contraventions that we're seeing here are tabulated, and just starting with the surf zone site, you can see the impact of the increased rainfall we've been experiencing. Looking just at the data from 2019 to 2021 during the volunteer monitoring period, we've got a much higher frequency of contraventions in the surf zone. So we really didn't solve that problem there with the sewer line hookup. And indeed, the frequency of contraventions of the 104 water quality criteria is very high. And in fact, we've got a substantial frequency of contraventions of this 500 level that triggers an immediate posting of a temporary advisory. So to wrap up here, the findings since 2019 indicate that we still have a significant fecal bacteria source in Briarcliff Acres. And the higher levels in the surf zone over this period suggest the importance of addressing the other swash, the White Point swash source. So in terms of the adaptive management that was done in Briarcliff, the question is, should more of those septic tanks be hooked up, or do we need more source information before proceeding? It's expensive to do these sewer hookups. That information might be more source tracking. It could be that what we're looking at in Briarcliff Acres is impacts from urbanized wildlife like deer, raccoons, or it could be emanating from the spiritual retreat center. There's also some potential, since fecal bacteria can survive and even reproduce in soils and sediment, that we've got some legacy resuspension coming from those frontline disconnected septic tanks. So one of the things we've already suggested to the municipalities is to consider expanding the volunteer monitoring to at least try to answer some of those questions. Well, that's it for me. Anybody have any questions?